or couldn't make it. So I'm Manoj Krishna. I'm the founder of HumanWisdom and the HumanWisdom Project, and we'll be talking about that. And Jo Thackwray is our co-host today, and she's a life and business coach. And so we're going to talk about positivity today and how such a simple thing can make such a difference to all our lives. What gets in the way? We're going to have a few breakout rooms and some discussions, and generally have a really fruitful evening. And we'll run for about an hour, hour and a half. We'll see how it goes. Jo, do you want to take over and see what's the next thing you're going to say about positivity?
Yeah, so I think, I'm Jo. I'm a human wisdom coach, amongst other hats that I wear as well, but my coaching underpins everything that I do. And one of the things I'm really passionate about is positivity. And that's why Manoj and I are talking about that this evening. And before we kicked off, I just wanted to share the Oxford Dictionary definition of positivity, because it's quite important, I think, before we carry on the discussions. And the definition of positivity is the practice of being or tendency to be positive or optimistic in attitude. So what that means is we're not born with positivity. We have to take action to work on positivity. So it's always about taking action. It's taking that time to work on positivity, understanding what we need to have in place to build that positive mindset. And I think the fundamental thing is like taking action, working on ourselves. And I always say, when people ask me and say, how do you maintain positivity, I always say it's work in progress. You know, we're not positive 24 hours a day. It's not always roses around the door. You know, we don't bury our heads in the sand and ignore all the challenges that come along. What it means is if a challenge comes along, we notice and we accept all the emotions that go with that challenge, whatever they may be. And we sit with them, we allow them to be, we work through them. But by choosing positivity and taking action, what we then try and do is find a solution, find a way through the challenge. And that is always work in progress. You know, we can't wave a magic wand and suddenly we're all, you know, positive Pollys or whatever. But it is not about ignoring the stuff that goes on in our lives. You know, it's about acknowledging that and taking action to be positive. So I just wanted to share that definition with you, because really this session is all about taking action and how that can link back to the Human Wisdom Project as well. So we're going to explore that a little bit more. So I don't know if there's anything else you'd like me to say, Manoj, at this point.
No, I think a good question to open with is, why do we need to be positive? And obviously it's because the mind isn't naturally positive. The mind is naturally negative, right?
It is, and our natural default for our brain is to go to the negative all the time, and we've got to work hard to push that negative army away in our minds, if you like, and bring that positive platoon forward. And if we don't work on that positive mindset, if we don't work on pushing those negative thoughts away, then we can get caught in a cycle of negativity. And that's a real dangerous spiral for not only your mental health, but your physical health as well. And it can massively, massively affect both.
So let's open it up. We don't have too many people, so why don't we ask everyone what they think? Why do you think, just put your hand up so we can have a chat. Why do you think the mind is negative? Why do you think we need to be positive? Why is the mind by default negative? Has anyone got any thoughts on that?
Anybody can jump in, feel free.
Dominic.
I don't know if it's framed as negativity really, but the mind is there to protect you, isn't it? So yes. if it's there to keep you safe, then that would tend to generating thoughts that maybe look on the negative side of things. So if you want to take a leap of faith into something new, as I know well, you know, the mind is all about, well, let's keep yourself safe. So let's look at all of the negative aspects of that and therefore it's just trying to keep you safe, is the way I see it.
Yes. By default, the mind focuses on the negative, what it doesn't have. And Kate, what's your view? Kate is also a human wisdom coach, by the way, and is deputy chair of the British Rowing. So,
and I owe a number of people on here emails with the access to the app as well. So it's good to see people on here.
yeah.
You know what was just going through my mind is some people can be very positive, but without physically showing that they're very positive. So I know that's a bit radical, and you know, so you, for some people they are very positive inside, but they come over as being neutrally very grumpy, or you know, because I know I work with some people and I'll say, "Are you okay?" And they went, "Yeah, this is just my," sorry for the language, but they'll say things like that, "This is my resting bitch face. I'm really happy, thank you very much." You know, I'm very happy. So we make judgments sometimes that people are unhappy because they might not be smiling and they might not be going, isn't life great? So I think for me, there's something about how people approach their choices and about how, you know, people feel in control of what they're doing. And that, so that's just my random little introduction. Okay. Hello, everyone.
Beverly, what do you think?
I'm going to say, actually, as a Scot, we tend to always focus a little bit more on the negative than the positive. We traditionally sort of do that in a sense, but I think it's, I'm quite analytical. So sometimes I will be quite factual about things, and that could be seen as negative, but actually, or not quite so happy with something, but actually I'm quite happy about it. So I think it's just a perception thing. So sometimes it's maybe a cultural or a learned habit of how you behave.
Yes, I think it may be more deep-seated in the sense that the default for the human mind is to, and especially if you've had some tough experiences before, and which most people have had now, you know, as you get older, some tough things have happened to you. So you're always looking for that danger and you're worried. And so there can be that tendency to be negative. So Joel, let's open this second question, which is, what does a negative mindset look like? So someone who's habitually negative and thinks that's the only way to be, how does that person look in the world or behave in the world? Or how does that world appear to that person?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I'm sure we can open it up in a minute. But you know, that person that always perhaps is perceived to see the you know, to see the negative, that will have a ripple effect onto their relationships. You know, that negativity will flow out to the relationships they're having as well, and it will flow into things around them, and it will take away. It could take away their enjoyment of life and maybe reluctance to explore things because they just see everything negatively and see that maybe everything's going to have a downside or whatever. So and also it will potentially have a knock-on effect with their mental health and their physical health as well.
Can you think of an example, Joe, of say a negative mindset? What would a negative mindset look like?
Somebody that always, I think from my point of view, somebody that always sees the negative. So you know, they maybe don't look for solutions. They just maybe give up. They might blame people around them for everything that's going on, rather than stopping and thinking, actually, I can take some action. I can do something here. I can find a solution. So all those things come into play as well. Okay. We've got some hands up, Manoj.
Yeah, Nora, what do you think?
I think a lot about like the external locus of control. Like if you think life happens to you and that you don't have any control over it, and sure, there are things that we don't have maybe a whole lot of control over, but if you focus on that, I think that's where a lot of negativity comes out.
Yes.
And that if you have more an internal locus, then you're like focusing on, okay, here's all the things I want to do, and that's what consumes your kind of focus on a daily basis. So then you end up being more positive.
Or the mind that thinks negatively thinks what's happening out there is responsible for how I'm feeling in here.
Mhm.
See, that's the way the mind typically works.
It's raining outside. That's why I'm not feeling great.
That's right. You see what I'm saying? Or so-and-so said something or didn't say something or whatever. David.
Yeah. So I think the negative mindset probably, as we were just talking about there, around the control. You know, a lot of with the negative mindset, like, we see a lot of blame culture. You know, oh, this happened, and this person thinks this way of me, and we tell ourselves a story and a narrative that, unfortunately, it's with any mindset, it's infectious. You know, people are always going to be like, this person feels like this, and this is how they are, etc., etc. And then it's very toxic a lot of the time. You know, this I suppose there's feelings of cynicism as well, and and that's what comes with that. You know, as I was saying, we tell ourselves a story, we believe our narrative, and we almost put that narrative into an echo chamber, and those who disagree with our narrative, there must be something wrong with them.
Yes, very true. So I guess it's someone who sees the worst in a person or a situation. Mike, what are you thinking?
I was just thinking that the way we think can have quite a big effect on this, because I'm quite an analytical thinker. And I think that must be something to do with my maths and engineering background a long time ago. But it means I tend to lean towards over-analyzing situations. And that's when the but this might happen, and but that might happen. And the, well, it's paralysis by analysis, isn't it? I know that's an overused phrase, but it certainly is a factor in my lack of positivity under certain circumstances. And I see it in others too.
Or you can be thinking about what others are thinking. And that can often get you, into a twist, because you start wondering, you start thinking they're thinking negative things about you, and then that gets you feeling more unhappy when actually they may not be thinking that at all. So that's...
And of course, that might be based on past experience of that other person.
Yes.
So there is something about what has happened in the past.
The person with a negative mindset, I guess, is also critical of themselves.
Yeah.
Often, I'm not good enough or whatever. Someone's talked about being a victim. Yes, Kate, do you have something to add to that?
I was going back to what David was saying, and also Mike as well, which was about that narrative that we say ourselves, and also, the conditioning element as well. So, as Mike rightly said, we are shaped by our experiences as well as we go through. Yes.
So if you've had a negative experience, you've been conditioned by that.
Definitely. But that conditioning is, can start quite early, and that's where, sometimes it can be quite generational as well.
Yes.
If I was born to an Irish Catholic father and a Yorkshire Protestant mother, and it was only after my dad died that I discovered that my Irish grandmother had an IRA medal from the Free Island War. So probably why she never really got on very well with my mum, but we never knew that. I discovered that my parents formed this very close network around us because they could control that. Whereas, when they got married, it was quite radical when they got married back in 1953.
So you bring up a good point, which is that if we've had tough childhoods, which a lot of people have had, then you're much more likely, if you're not aware of your own conditioning and don't have the ability to question it, you're much more likely to develop a negative mindset because it's based on your past experience, if you like.
Yeah.
Sushma joins us from Colorado. Hello, Sushma. Nice to see you after so long.
Hi, Manoj. Yeah, it's been a while. Hi, everyone. So I just wanted to add to that. While I completely agree that there are many factors like conditioning, and past experiences that may have caused somebody to lean towards a negative mindset. I think even from my personal experience with different relationships in my life, I have learned that sometimes it's just giving undue importance to what others think or what others say. And I think that's where it relates a lot to the whole human wisdom idea, Manoj, that you need to strengthen your inner voice. You need to think of what is important for you. And that only comes through self-inquiry. I mean, does it really matter is a big question. Like, lots of people say a lot of things, but how much importance do you attach to it? And how much do you allow that to affect you and your well-being and your, mental well-being? I think if that path is clear in our own mind, it helps to kind of move away from a lot of negativity in our day-to-day life, because it's not really what's important.
When I work
just
in
focus
school,
on the
when I work in schools and I talk to children and I say, okay, your friend and somebody else are talking in the playground, and they just look at you, what are you thinking? And they all say, well, I think they're talking behind my back, they're telling tales and so on.
Exactly.
But I said, how are you so sure of that? And that's where the negative mindset by default comes in.
Exactly.
They could be
And let's
saying nice
say,
things about you, or they may not be talking about you at all. But
right.
that's how our mind
And for
works.
a moment, let's say they are speaking behind your back. How much does it matter to you? How much difference does it make? Is it really important what they think about you? I mean, they might be just somebody in the crowd who just happened to look at you and judge you. But, are you responsible? Is it that important that you'll allow it to affect how you feel or your mood and your well-being and, crib over it? So I think that's also an additional element of clarity.
So you brought up a really important point, which is the person with the negative, or the mind which has a negative mindset, doesn't take responsibility for how it feels. Would we agree? That means the mind which has a negative mindset, let's not personalize it, let's talk about the mind that has got a negative mindset, believes that how it feels is because of external circumstances. You're making me feel that way. The situation is, or my circumstances are. It doesn't take, as Joe said right at the beginning, it doesn't take responsibility. Do you want to add something to that, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't take responsibility, does it? And this leads completely into why it's so important to think about connecting with our own deeper wisdom and trying to understand ourselves better, because like Sushma says, it's about does it really matter if so-and-so thinks that, or does it really matter if that's happened? It's about working on what matters to us, what helps us to find that peace and happiness. And if we can find that within ourselves, all those external factors won't bother us. They won't bring that negativity in. They won't bring that anger in. They won't bring all those emotions in that can then cause conflict, in our relationships with other people, with other countries, whatever, however big it is. But yeah, it's about really understanding our own mindsets, what we can be accountable for ourselves, what we can control ourselves, and not blaming our circumstances or anything else around us, but really working on, well, what can I do? What can I do to interact better with people? What can I do to respond better rather than reacting to people or situations? And the more that we work on that and understand that a little bit more, the better we can interact with the world around us. I think if we can understand ourselves better rather than blaming everything around us. And I know I've done that before. I've when I've been in really sticky challenges, your default is to blame other people and the circumstances, but actually when you stop and think, you think, well, actually it's me. I can do something about this. I can take action. I can change this narrative in my mind, or I can change what's going on around me. But it's digging deeper and it's taking that action and taking those steps to make those changes.
Right. So a really important point there, Joe, which is But it's not easy for the mind that is used to thinking negatively about, it doesn't even recognize, firstly, that it's thinking negatively. It just thinks that's the way it is. That's normal. That becomes my normal. So to switch from that to thinking, firstly, to be aware that there's something may not be quite right. I could look at it differently. As David said, your narrative, you have to question, be able to question the way you're thinking, right? David.
Yeah. So what was coming up for myself from what Joe was saying is it reminds me a lot of the mindset around the Serenity Prayer, which is accept the things I cannot change, have wisdom to change those I can, and accept the things I cannot change, have courage to change those things I can, and have wisdom to know the difference. That really resonated with what Joe was saying. A lot of the times we're blaming things. We're like, this is this and this is a problem, and it's like, ultimately, can you change that situation? Is this something you have control of? I think there's a real marrying between control and the mindset. I think a lot of times, and I would say I'm guilty of this as well, is where you have a negative mindset. When you look at it from bird's eye view, it's like, is this something you have control over? Can you control how somebody feels about you? No, you can't. You can only there are things that are within your sphere of control, and that's what you should concentrate on.
Yes, no, very much so. Okay, so we've just explored two questions so far. Joe, do you think it's time to pause and we could maybe do that little survey we had in mind?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
yeah.
We've got a little survey for everyone. It's anonymous, by the way, so you could say whatever you like. Nobody knows who it is, but it just is a sense of, gives us...
You will all need your phones if you've got your phones, and you can log into Mentimeter. I know Linda has definitely used Mentimeter before.
So here's the instructions.
Sure.
You go to menti.com and just use this code. And I'm going to do it as well. So we can
I'll do it as well.
And we've just got a few, and you'll see why the questions are relevant, because we're going to try and find solutions to them as we travel through this. Okay. So 37785 Okay.
So feel free to enter whatever you would like to enter, and it will come up on the screen, and we'll build a picture of challenges.
Here we go. Okay, we've got our first ones coming in. There we go.
I like that word, overcommitted.
Yes.
Whoever's put that in. I put time in, and I think I probably meant overcommitted.
Yes. Okay. So these are some of the challenges we all face. Financial worries, of course, relationships, overpromises, divorce, loneliness. And this is a picture of being human.
Yeah.
See? So the nice thing about this is that it shows us that this is what, if you're a human being, at some point in your life, you're going to face one or more of these challenges. And one of the things we're going to try and explore is how can having a positive mindset help us meet some of these challenges in a better or different way. Okay, here's another question. Hang on. Why can't I go to the next question, Joe? Here, down here, sorry.
Down at the bottom, yeah.
Yeah. How happy are your relationships?
And those can be relationships, colleagues, you know, friends, family, any kind of relationships.
So wherever we are on the scale, I think there's always room for improvement, and maybe having a positive mindset could make a difference. Actually, Joe, I think I must have gone ahead a little bit. So, okay, we've got challenges. How happy are your relationships? Okay. How stressed do you feel? Why are the results hidden? Hang on.
My phone says that you need to refresh the next slide.
Okay, hang on. Here we go. Show results.
Here we go.
Here we go. All right. So, yeah. Okay. The statistics nationally are that 80% of people suffer from moderate to severe stress, and about 20 to 40%, depending on who you poll, suffer from anxiety. I was in a school last week, and 17-year-olds said 57% of them suffered from quite severe anxiety. As far as relationships are concerned, some polls say 50 to 80% of relationships are strained or unhappy. Okay, link to this presentation. How positive a person are you? Okay. And what do you think gets in the way of being positive? Work, thinking, I get in my own way or myself, managing energy, fear, self-criticism. It's very interesting how overthinking comes in as the number one reason. Well,
It's an interesting comment in the chat, Manoj, from Hazelman.
yes.
Instead of negative and positive mindsets, I prefer to call it survival mindset versus enlightened mindset.
Okay, yes, that's another way of putting it. Hi, Hazelman. Nice to... Hazelman's coming to us from Melbourne. What's the time there? Golly. It's like 6 in the morning, isn't it?
Yep, it's about 6:35, so I'm trying to get ready for work.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, we have a really interesting mix all the way from Colorado. Oh, there's Alan coming in. Alan's coming in to us from South Africa. It's lovely, isn't it, the Zoom business? You get to meet people from all over the world. So So that was interesting. I don't know whether we learned anything new. The challenges we face collectively are the same, and what gets in the way of a positive mindset is probably overthinking. Alan, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be with you guys. Sorry I was a bit late. My other meeting ran a bit late. I'm so happy to be with you guys. I'm sorry I'm in the...
Alan's from Johannesburg. Okay. All right. So we've been talking about, you've joined at the perfect time, Alan, because we are now about to talk about what can we do to develop or nurture a positive mindset. Joe, do you want to get the ball rolling on that? Give us one pointer and then we'll ask everyone else. What can we do to develop a positive mindset?
So yeah, we can try to start working on our mindset and take action to work on our mindset and try and reduce those negative thoughts and pull those positive thoughts forward. So that's a really basic start, and it takes hard work and it takes regular work to do that, as we've already talked about, where our negative mindsets can sit. But yeah, to start thinking and acting as if we are more positive, really choosing that to do that. And something else that really, really does help is gratitude. Looking at our lives with gratitude, where can we find, whatever sort of day we've had, what can we be grateful for in that day? What are the positives that we can pull out of that day? Something I always say is that every day may not be good, but there is always good in every day. And even if we're in a really challenging day, for whatever that is, it can be the worst thing you can imagine could ever happen. If you really stop and think at the end of that day, there will be something that you can pull out of that day that will have been positive. Maybe it's somebody's kindness or something. So practicing gratitude is something that we can do, and it is so powerful.
So you mentioned two things. Firstly, start thinking about it and being grateful. Okay, anyone else have any tips on what can we do? Sushma, what can we do to develop or nurture a positive mindset?
So a couple of things that I have tried on myself, Manoj, and with some of my clients is a lot of us struggle to kind of slow down or analyze while we are in the process. So one thing that has really helped is put a complete stop, come to a complete stop. So tell yourself that maybe like for the next 1 week, no matter who says what, I will not react to it. And I will take time to think about it. Now, a lot of my clients say, let's say a colleague said something that they shouldn't have to me, but if I don't react, then I'm missing the opportunity. And I'm like, this is just one situation in a lot of situations that will come up in your life. So it's okay to miss those few situations. So just take the time back, think about it, and think about what would be the right way to respond. And what I've noticed is over a period of time, when you deliberately put that stop, your mind kind of gets tuned into leaning towards analyzing your response before you put it out into the world. So it's like the artificial intelligence, like, you're teaching your mind as you have more experiences, it kind of tunes in and it follows that process much faster. So people, and I've had people tell me that, how long am I going to do this? And I've experienced it myself, and I've shared it with people. They've come back with really positive results, that maybe just give it like a week or maybe a month. And then you will see that your mind really tunes into that kind of responses, and you feel more peaceful because you like the way you responded, and you feel that it's the right way to do it. And I think that kind of takes away all of that inner dialogue and, conflict that happens in our own minds. And you feel like you're in a much more peaceful situation is what I have kind of experimented and learned from it.
I think for me, the first step is probably to be able to look at yourself, because we never are able to look at ourselves from the outside. It's almost like you step out and you're looking at yourself and you realize that you have a negative mindset. I think that's the first step. A lot of us just don't see that because the mind is just what it is, and we never question ourselves. Dominic.
Just to maybe sometimes changing a perspective would be to ask a different question. So when you're in the midst of something, perhaps asking the question, what is the lesson here for me? What am I being taught? What can I learn from this? So it's happening
there
for
could
you
be,
rather than to you.
sorry, go on, Dominic. I interrupted.
It's just that little perspective change of if life happens for you, not to you.
Yes. Or a simple question could be, is there another way of seeing the same situation? The question itself opens the door to shifting perspective, doesn't it? Mike.
I've just been thinking about my reactions to things, and one of the things that I have tried to do and not always succeed when discussing with other people, and I'm leaning towards the negative, is to say, not when they say something, not to say but to say and. This is not a new concept, but it changes the whole dynamic in a conversation. And when you say but, it implies criticism. When you say and, it feels much more positive. You're adding to the argument. I might totally disagree with what they've just said, but if I can offer something else in the and style, I then realize that I feel better about it as well.
Like that, Mike, it opens up the conversation, and language with ourselves is another thing that we could do. We can work on for positivity, thinking about the language that we use with ourselves, the language that we use with other people. And Mike, that's a perfect example of how you're reframing your language. So it's not, you're intentionally trying not to bring that negative slant in. You're trying to use another way. So that's a great example. Thank you.
I love this collective learning, because we are the same human being, all of us deep down, and we can ask questions, we can explore, we can learn from each other. And this is such a beautiful thing. I really enjoy it. Kate.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's fantastic discussion. And I do like the whole reframing thing that Mike's just said there. I think one of the things for me as well is trying to understand, for me, why I might be reacting sometimes the way that I am. For both, I know I can be hyper sometimes, so it's a bit of a worry when I start to get too hyper, just as much as I can go the other way and think, suddenly catastrophize something as well. So there's something about, for me, naming the emotion. So I use it quite a lot in my sports coaching about fear doesn't kill you, but panic does. So if I can name and understand the emotion that's coming in, but also I'm trying increasingly, and Manoj, this has been since I did my wisdom training, really, my human wisdom. So I will put it down in my reflections at some point, I promise you. And it's, it's about trying to understand the other person's perspective as well.
Yes.
So I'll give you an example. I was at a book club recently, and one of the people in the book club is a passionate anti-vaxxer and a passionate anti-mask wearer. And that's causing quite a lot of tension. And actually, I thought, I want to understand why she's thinking that. So I just try to understand what my reaction was, but just try and take a step back to understand where she was coming from. And it really was, she was coming from fear. She was coming from a fear of a loss of freedom. That's where that was at the heart of it all, that being told that she had to do this and she was going to lose her job if she didn't do this and the other, and she was catastrophizing something.
Yes.
So for me, it's about trying to change the dialogue a little bit, which is really building on what Mike's just said. But it is genuinely trying to understand the other person's point of view, because who says I'm right? And that's something.
So you said something really interesting, which is the human mind thinks it's always right. And therefore the other person must be wrong, not just different, but has to be wrong. And what you've just done is stepped out of that binary way of looking at things and just asked, what's making the other person think that way? Right? And then you learned something about fear, but then you also stepped back and said, what's making me think that way? See, and that then takes us to David's point earlier, which is we all have our narratives, which we never question.
Yeah.
So the moment you ask those questions, for me, the question opens the door to learning.
No, definitely. And you know what, I mean, blimey, I deliver coaching courses where we talk about using, you know, the personal perception and using some NLP techniques and things, but I'm just learning really to use it on myself when I'm having some of those conversations, to be honest, and to take myself out of the narrative sometimes.
Alan, do you have a South African perspective on being positive? What do the people in Johannesburg think?
So I think Joe took a lot of my things. Gratitude, in my work, gratitude is just phenomenal how it does that. But I think also it's about, you know, as we said, about creating that space for people to be able to do that. So for example, I do a lot of management training, and I get managers to create a space for people to be able to explore that as well. So where people feel maybe in an environment, they feel, you know, their manager's looking, but if the manager's open to it, then they feel they can be more open to it, and that promotes growth, and that promotes people being able to, you know, to look at it and being able to grow through those experiences. So I think there's a couple of things. It's about creating the right environment for people, creating the right culture for people, that if you have a company that their culture is based like that, then people will feel more comfortable. And then if the managers are like that, and then it comes down to that individual level, that people themselves have to be able to self-analyze, but you have to be able to create that environment, a very safe environment for people to feel vulnerable to be able to do that.
I'm wondering, Joe, at this point, whether it might be nice just to have a little 5-minute breakout so that everyone can say hello to each other, and maybe ask a simple question like, what is the one thing that can emerge from your conversation about how can we be positive? How can we develop a positive mindset? Shall we try that? Just for 5 minutes, so that we can get to know each other one-on-one, and just set up some breakout rooms. How many of us are there? 14.
14.
So 7. Yes, let's do that. Oh, we've got somebody else just joined us. Let's just wait a second. Probably Guler LB. I don't know where they're coming from. Quite late. Otherwise, they'll be locked out. So the question is, what have you learned that you could share on what can we do to develop a positive mindset? Guler, hello, welcome. Where are you calling from? Hello, Guler? Okay. Hello?
I'm calling from Toronto.
Toronto, okay. We're just going to do a breakout room, Guler, where we're going to ask one question, which is, what can we do to develop a positive mindset? So we've got to think of one idea which you're going to come back and share with us all. All right, so here we go. I'm going to
Am I not going into a breakout room,
I hope
Manoj?
you're going into one. Hang on.
I thought I was.
You are. Where are you? Oh, there you are.
I
Joe
don't know.
Thackwray not joined, it's saying. You're supposed to be with Dominic.
Okay.
Why aren't you?
Can you send me again? Oh, hang on a minute. Right, I'm joining.
Go to room. Hello, Chad. Hey, Sarah.
Hi, Manoj.
Hey, how are you?
Oh, I'm very well, thank you. Yes.
Okay.
And yourself?
Good, good. And where did you say you were from? I've forgotten.
I'm in Newcastle in the UK.
Newcastle. Tell me about yourself. What do you do in Newcastle?
I don't actually do very much, to be fair. I'm sick and disabled now, so I just spend most of my time doing what I like and just basically helping out people, I suppose.
Okay. So what's your learned experience, Sarah? What can we do as human beings to nurture or develop a more positive mindset?
Well, I think fundamentally the best thing you can do is keep learning.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
I also do journaling, meditation, and I have a lot of positive friends. So not much room there for negativity.
So you mentioned a few cool things. So one is positive friends.
Yeah.
And what was the next thing you said? Journaling.
Yeah.
Meditation.
And then meditation.
And you mentioned a couple of other things.
Yeah, just keep learning.
Keep learning. Okay. And does that help you cope better with your disability and so on?
Yes, it does actually. And having a lot of positive people around me also sort of like boosts my energy levels, even though they're quite low. I have a lot of energy in the mind, put it that way, but not necessarily in the body.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay, well, you know, when we go back to the group, I would love you to share those 4 points with everyone.
Okay.
If you don't mind, which is
that's fine.
Surround yourself with positive people. And when you do your journaling, what question do you ask yourself in the journaling?
Oh, I have a series of journal prompts. I actually take a lot of time in sharing my journal in between a lot of things, like have I done any self-care today? How do you actually feel? Is there any small victories today? Bigger questions is, how do I speak to myself when I'm alone? Because obviously it's a lot more positive if you're with someone, but you're not always quite so positive if you're by yourself.
Okay, so look, you've got so much to share with us. So I'd love you to talk about your journaling. I think one other question you can ask is, what have I got to be grateful for today? You know?
Yeah, I have a lot to be grateful for, and I recognize that daily.
So if I introduce you as someone, do you mind sharing what your disability is? I mean, could I talk about that?
Oh, yeah, that's okay. Yes, I just have diabetes and heart disease.
Okay. So I will share that with people and ask you to speak. And I think we can learn a lot from. And what do you learn?
Oh, well, what do I learn? I've learned life coaching. I've learned NLP. I can't say I can remember everything I've learned, by the way, but I've learned a lot about self-empowerment and self-awareness. I think is one of my biggest things that I've learned.
Super. All right. Well, I think it's time. Maybe give ourselves another 20 seconds. But I think you'd love to look at the HumanWisdom app, because we've got a journaling section there where
yes, I have seen it before, Manoj, but that was on my old computer and I don't know how to access it on my new computer.
I'll be telling you everyone how we can do that. Okay,
cool, thank you.
So I'm gonna hang on, leave the breakout room and then breakout rooms, say close all rooms, 60 seconds. Yeah, here we go. It's nice to have a one-to-one chat, isn't it, Sarah, with people?
Oh, definitely, yes. I was glad it was you, Manoj.
Because it's you can get lost a bit in a big crowd, I think, sometimes.
Yes, that's very
Hopefully
true. I've been on Zooms with Ruby Wax, and there's been like 90 people there, so it's much more intimate here.
Yes, yes. Yes. You know, it's fascinating to me how everybody's got something really useful to share. So I'm going to open the conversation with Sarah, who, and with her permission, I can say she suffers from heart disease and diabetes. She suffers from chronic illness. And I asked her how she uses positivity to cope better with things. And she had some really interesting things to share. So go ahead, Sarah.
Yes, hi. So the first one is keep learning. I absolutely have a thirst for knowledge. So I try to log on to every webinar and things like that I can handle. And I've learned NLP and life coaching. As I said to Manoj, I can't always remember these things. My disabilities have really upset my memory. So I don't actually understand a lot of stuff that I've learned, but that was a long time ago. But mainly I do journaling, and I find that it's easier to keep a positive mindset when you're journaling, because some of my prompts are things like what habits have been holding me back from moving on, and how do I speak to myself when I'm alone. I use also statements like, today will be a great day because, and today I'm grateful for. One of them is, what stories am I telling myself today? Because that I often catch myself in a story that isn't actually true. So I can quite easily correct myself if I'm watching what I'm thinking. And I surround myself with positive friends, because it's easy to not have any negative people in one's social circle. And I meditate as well. So yeah, that's about it from me. But I try and keep positive as much as I can and overcome most of my challenges with ill health and that.
Okay, well, there's some real jewels in there. So thank you for that, Sarah. Maybe we could ask someone who's not spoken. Monica, would you like to share something from your conversation?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. What for me is important when I am thinking about the growing my mindset, etc. Yes, and focus on to be here now. Yes, not focus on the future, not focus on the past, but what is the present. Yes. And if I have some difficult situations, I start to think about my emotions. What emotions tell to me? Yes. How my body react on this? Yes. If I need to do some break, if I need to breathe breath out deeply, etc. And also what I often usually use in the morning when I wake up, I look at the mirror and start smiling.
Okay.
Yeah, to keep a good mood.
Okay, thank you. Beverly, would you like to share something from your group?
Yeah, I think we had a lovely chat, actually. And I think there was a really good, with Mike's permission, I will coin his phrase, because we were talking about in the lockdown environment, how it was quite easy to be locked into things like social media, or realize that you're focusing on something and so excluding perhaps other things, and maybe some of the comments you get back on sort of social media as well can be negative. So I think that was we had a sort of fascinating discussion about how that impacted people as well. But I like to sort of locked into something that absolute focus, or not just necessarily a single site, but locked into that type of medium. And I think from my perspective, I think it was acutely aware perhaps of some of my family members who suffer depression, and after several conversations with them, you can become quite drained by it, as if a heavy weight is on So actually it makes me more aware of how I'm phrasing things, and makes me sort of speak to myself about how I may rephrase something to make it a little bit more positive, because I guess naturally I'm not such a positive person in terms of, you know, being wildly enthusiastic about things. So I suppose it's reframing my own mindset, probably in the same way as Kate, you know, suggested earlier.
So some really good pointers there. One is that the mind tends to lock into a certain situation, whatever it's worried about or stressed about. And what you're saying is, if you can counter that by zooming out and looking at the whole picture, not just the thing that's bothering you, then often you'll be able to see in perspective, it's not so bad. Your life's pretty good.
That's right. And I think both of us, both Mike and I, said, well, actually, sometimes we take ourselves outside into the open air, the environment, because it sort of breaks that little you know, cycle. And I think that's particularly important, given that we've been, you know, sort of 2 years sort of locked down, or 2 years more confined, getting that different outdoor perspective.
Nora.
I think that's really important point, Beverly, actually. Sorry, Manoj. None of us have actually mentioned nature and outdoors and connecting with nature. And that is so, so important to help us with fostering our positive mindset as well, is, like you say, breaking that cycle, getting outside, experiencing nature, experiencing fresh air, having that exercise, whatever that looks like for you. But that, you know, connecting with nature is a massive thing that we can do to help work on our positive mindset as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think particularly in the winter time, it becomes more difficult perhaps to get out during daylight hours, but it makes such a difference, even if it's 10 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Mike.
Well, I've decided that Joe is a mind reader.
I'm not really.
Because I was just frantically looking for the button to put my hand up. One thing I didn't say to Beverly, because we were talking about breaking out of what we were trapped in, and I was talking about putting my iPad down and just getting away from not nice people like you, but lots of the things that I need to do on there. But what I do is I say to my wife, right, I'm going to get some sanity now, and it's nothing to do with her, but I'm going to drive off with my camera, and I'm going to go out into nature, and I'm going to try and take some bird photographs. Now, all the birds go away when I do that, but that doesn't really matter, because I'm out in nature, walking on my own, quiet, and just enjoying the beauty all around me. And that completely transforms my mindset.
Absolutely.
So, afterthought, Beverly.
You're being in the present as well, Mike. It sounds like you're just completely focusing on that moment as well, which it's just all a lovely win-win.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I'm looking for that little bit of movement, listening for that little bit of sound, spotting the hoverfly on the flower down there that I can take a picture of, and enjoying the sound of the sea. Everything else, I could go on for a long time. I better stop.
Okay, good. Anyone else have anything to add to that? Anything that we haven't yet drawn out? Okay. Well, there's a few other things on my list, I thought. One is the mind compares all the time. And that process of comparing oneself with others can wrap one in a negative mindset. There's always going to be someone who's better, has more money, and so on. And so if one recognizes that process and puts a halt to that, that can save us from the perils of a negative mindset. Okay, I'm just going to now share my screen and talk to you a little bit about the Human Wisdom Project, what we're doing with it, and how you can get involved. So this is the, can you see the screen, Joe?
Yes, we can see the screen.
Okay.
I can see it. Hopefully everybody else
I'm sure everyone can. Yeah. So this is just the Human Wisdom app we've been working on. There's a lot of people here who are part of that journey. Kate and Sushma and Joe and Dominic and so many others around the world. What we're trying to do is help people be the best versions of themselves, be content and happy, less stressed and anxious, have healthy relationships, live with compassion and understand the root cause of problems. And we're doing that by helping people just understand themselves and how our minds work. And one of the things that David talked about is being able to question our own narrative. And again, it's being able to be aware of what's happening in our own thinking, and that then allows us to question things. So we have a number of features here, including a discussion forum, some podcasts to look at, and wisdom stories. And all this section is completely free. It's just humanwisdom.me is the website. Then there's an introduction to wisdom. And we have this program called the 5 Circles of Wisdom, which I'm going to just quickly mention here. So we begin with exercises for a quiet mind, and we talk about how to look at ourselves, the art of inquiry, how the mind works, understand our emotions, and then explore how we can live with this wisdom. And developing a positive mindset is part of living with wisdom. If you have an acute challenge, then these short videos talk about how you can meet those challenges now. So for example, if you're anxious, this video on anxiety explores, I think, many ways that you can overcome anxiety right now. So sort of 14 ways of overcoming and managing anxiety. And that's because when we're distressed, our mind's in a fog and we can't really think clearly. So I think your idea, Sarah, of the journaling is so helpful, because the journal prompts you to say, what's your mindset today? Or why are you thinking in a particular way? So for example, here in our journal section, we've got questions like, what have you got to be grateful today? Or learn about yourself, or what's the kind thing you did? I think that's one of the great things that can help us develop a positive mindset, which is doing small things for other people. And what did you notice freshly, as if for the first time? And Micah, if you're taking photographs, I'm sure you notice a lot of things for the first time and freshly. But you can do that even, of course, without taking photographs. And then we have some exercises to acquire. A quiet mind is really useful to develop a positive mindset because it helps you be calm. And we have a number of nature meditations here for you to explore. It's a different way of being in nature. And as Joe said, it's really nurturing for all of us. Then we have some breathing exercises, which Sarah said she does, journaling and some meditation exercises. Now, we know how to look at the world, but not how to look at ourselves. So the art of inquiry explores how we can do that. And there are 9 modules. And one of the key things is to look at ourselves without judgment, which the mind finds really hard. We're so self-critical, usually. Then we talk about how the mind works. And the negative mindset is one of the ways the mind works. So by exploring that and understanding it, then you can respond with wisdom and say, okay, how can I be more positive? So we talk about the way the mind works, and we talk about our emotions. And then we explore in these 16 modules how to live with wisdom. For example, if you look at stress, there are many causes of stress which come from our own thinking, or we can explore how you can meet stress with wisdom. And sometimes all you can do is change yourself, and that changes everything. So then we have relationships, love, criticism, self-esteem, how to live with peace and deal with the idea of death. And then there are a number of modules down here as well on work, leadership, money, food, communication, and how to be happy. And lastly, there's some modules on how we can use this understanding to solve global problems. So I'll leave you to explore that in depth. For those who are, it's free to download and browse, and we'll send you a link to that. And for those of you who are interested in subscribing, for the members of this audience and group, there is a code you can use called positive20, which I'll put in the chat, and that'll give you a 20% discount on the app if you subscribe to that anytime in the next month. Okay. Alan, what do you think of human wisdom, and what do you think we could do with that in South Africa? Because I've sent you all the stuff to look at.
I think it's incredible. I think what you've designed, it's systematic, it's clear, it's user-friendly, it's a brilliant, it really is a brilliant system. I think it really has an ability to affect, everyone's life. If people follow it and you go through it and you can implement it, I think it's a phenomenal way. And I just think it's a brilliant. The site is easy to use, it's easy to navigate, it's really user-friendly. So I think anyone who's like logging on, it just speaks to you. So if that's what you're looking for, I think it's really brilliant. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many applications. What applications can you think of where it could be helpful?
I think every aspect of life, actually. I don't think there's specific, I think as human beings, we all go through ups and downs. I think we all go through challenges. I think having something like that, we live in such a negative world. And I think having a tool like that just helps us just refocus on what's important, gives us the tools and the abilities to really structure our lives to live happier lives. I really think it's in every area, you're going through a bad day, or something bad happens to you, or so you go through a bit of a wobble, you can log on and you can see something that just recenters you and just gives you a bit of that direction.
Yes.
And I think where we are at the moment in the world, I think we need a lot of that.
Yes. I mean, I think it's just about, that's why it's called the Human Wisdom Project. It's just understanding the way our shared human mind functions, like we're doing in this call, which is the mind has a tendency to be negative. So once you recognize that, then you can start thinking of solutions. As David said, you're so attached to your narrative, or as Sarah pointed out. Dominic, do you have any thoughts on how we could, what we could do with this in the world?
Well, I'm going to be biased. I'm going to say educate, aren't I?
Yes. Well, you should introduce yourself, because I think everyone doesn't know what you do.
I have been involved now for around 6 weeks, I think. But I am now the Director of Education for the Human Wisdom Project, with a big mission to get this out into, or help Manoj get this out into the world of education. And the earlier we start with this education, the bigger impact we can have.
Yes, and I think Dominic and I and Alan have had a chat, so we're going to see what we can do, starting with Alan and his schools in South Africa. Okay, so if we lived with a positive mindset, what impact do you think, how would our lives change if we could do that? Kate, do you want to start with that? And I'll ask everyone what they think. How would...
For me, it's about having more constructive conversations about, dealing with some of the conflict, breaking some of the bad patterns that we find ourselves in. That's really important for me, and I think your point as well about understanding what each other's fears are a little bit as well. So if we can understand where people's anxiety is, that can be incredibly helpful. And I think, you quoted some figures earlier. I coach in sport, I coach people who are transitioning to be non-executive directors and all sorts, and fear is that common thing with them all. So if we can start to understand what our own fears are, what other people's fears are, then maybe we can start to be a little bit humane towards each other. Yes. Which is, and I think unfortunately in the UK, if we look at the dreadful accident that happened at the weekend with the 27 who drowned trying to move over, including some of the kids, some people's reactions to that have been dreadful, and some people's have been incredibly, have a lot of humanity in it. But if we can start to try and just understand where each other's coming from.
Yes. So even the person that we think has reacted in a way that's in our mind dreadful, in their mind they've reacted in a way that's perfectly normal for them. See, and they think our reactions, So again, is how do we bridge that gap and find a way of connecting with human beings who have different points of view? Yeah.
Then it becomes a bit like, you know, I remember my mum saying to me once, you will always love your children. You don't have to like them, but you'll always love them. And I think there's something about, you know, if we could all accept that we're not going to love everyone in the world, but if we can just respect where people are coming from and then try and understand, then at least we might be able to start to deal with some of these awful conflicting situations that are around.
Okay.
That's what I'm thinking.
Mike, how would our life change if we lived with a positive mindset, or we could develop one and live with that way?
Yeah, I knew you were going to ask me next. I really think there's something here about lightness and laughter, and a different type of relationship with other people. Some people I might not contemplate laughing with. I don't laugh very much anyway, to be honest, but maybe just the way I am. It's because I don't work with Kate anymore. I think there is something about if we've got this awareness of the way we're reacting, and we can see how other people are reacting, then there's much more chance of me responding differently to that other person, and therefore the relationship becoming entirely different, and hopefully one that's much more fun, and is, I'm going to say, less pressurized. You know, let me get along with some of these really awkward so-and-sos that I'm forced to be in a room with somebody.
Now that's a real positive mindset, isn't it? Because otherwise our first reaction is, oh, that person's awkward. I'm going to avoid them. I'm never going to talk to them again.
That's difficult when that person was your boss. I'm going back.
Yeah, I'm sure. Sarah, you already seem to have a positive mindset, but how do you think people's lives would change?
Well, it would be incredible if everybody could be as positive as I am, because I feel as though the world is very negative and it's not a very nice place to be. So if there were more people out there that were positive, it would make it a much nicer place to be.
Okay. Beverly, do you have any thoughts to add to that?
No, I think it's partly surrender yourself with people who don't have too negative a perspective as well, because the more you do, the more you become, I think.
Okay. Joe, some closing comments. What do you think?
Yeah, just thinking about what you know, the question that you've asked there, I think I would think that if we asked everybody in the world what they wanted, I would hope that they would perhaps say they want to live with peace and happiness, because I can't imagine why people would deliberately go out of their way to cause conflict, but they do. You know, that is what as humans do. But if we all worked on ourselves, if we all had access to the Human Wisdom Project and we got that into education, and we could start to educate the next generation to really look deep inside themselves, really understand each other, listening, you know, and respecting other people's points of view. Wow, what a world we could change into from the world that perhaps we are now. And really, you know, if we choose to work on ourselves, we can find that peace and that happiness, and you know, that's all that matters. It's not about material things, it's about finding that inner peace, but it doesn't happen with a magic wand. We've got to choose to work on it.
Yes.
So we've got to be educating people, and even the NHS. You know, if we could get this into the NHS as a self-help tool for people suffering with mental health issues and things, you know, because it all starts with us. It all starts with us, what's inside here, and what we can do about it. And we've had some really lovely insights, and I think everybody's shared some really lovely you know, their own insights and the way that you yourselves, your own positivity, what you're doing about your positivity. And I think what is lovely as well is this whole conversation highlights that we're all unique individuals we all have different perceptions, we all have different limitations, we all have different mindsets, we're all unique. But just by being part here this evening, we're obviously choosing to work on our positivity and our mindsets, and being, you know, being more at peace with ourselves, and that's a great start.
Dominic, any thoughts on how would our life change? How would your life change if you couldn't be more positive, but if you were? Or people's lives, or the heads, or the teachers you meet, right? You meet a lot of teachers, don't you, on your travels?
I do, yes, and I think that's, you know, I just want to echo what Joe said. You know, and I mentioned earlier about, you know, the earlier we get this education for everyone, the better. However, I think it's important that we educate the educators as well, because when we have people who are at the chalk face teaching with wisdom, it can only be a positive impact on the children in their care as well. So it's almost like a ripple effect, isn't it? And I think it's important that we have conversations like this, because it starts with the individual. It starts with an individual conversation, and the more this works, the more these conversations we have, the ripple effect will be bigger and bigger. And actually, yes, the world will begin to change. It's almost like a shift of consciousness.
Yes, that's what we need.
Into something.
Alan, some last minute pearls of wisdom from you before you run.
I wasn't going anywhere. I just wanted to say thank you.
Okay, go on. I thought you were going to run away, but I wanted to hear from you.
I'm not running anywhere yet. Don't worry.
Okay, go on.
Yeah, I must agree with Dominic as well. I think that for me, the biggest thing is working with kids and giving kids the ability to deal. You know, if we can create this in the next generation, the more we can imbue it in them, then they grow up with this, instead of trying to educate adults that already have these belief systems and it's already been part of our nature. The earlier we can start with something like this, we know the more successful people will be later on in life. So for me, that I think is an amazing thing, is that the younger we can start educating on these concepts, the better the world will be, because those are going to be the people who are going to solve the problems that we might have created, but they're going to be the ones who are going to have to solve them. And if they don't have that positive mindset, and they don't have the belief within themselves that they can do it, they're going to look at the problem and say, I can't do anything about this. And then it just gets worse. So we need to instill within them the belief that they need to develop that within themselves, that resilience, that positivity, the belief that they can change the world. And that's, I agree very much with Dominic, that's why we had the discussion. I think the earlier we can get things going, the quicker we can change the world. So
that's a great idea, that if we have a positive mindset, we think we can accomplish anything, can't we? And if we can give everyone that dose of that positive mindset, especially the young people, they can go out and change the world. And of course, so many young people are doing that already. Look at there's so many examples with Greta Thunberg and Malala and so on. Any other thoughts? Chad, you've been quiet. Maybe you're happy. I'm happy for you not to say anything, but if you do, you're more than welcome. David, do you have any thoughts on how life would change if we had a more positive mindset?
Yeah, I mean, I think in short, I think if the world had a more positive mindset, we'd see an increase in kindness, caring, and empathy. I think we'd definitely see more of that, and just society as a whole would be a lot better. I mean, what I think we're starting to see now is just as business as an example, is we're starting to see more human and heart-centered organizations. This whole kind of just out for yourselves. I think society as a whole is maybe turning more towards being more human and more heart-orientated. And I think having the positive mindset plays a big part in that.
Okay, thank you. Gula, do you want to add anything to that?
Yes, well, I'm sorry I'm so late in the conversation.
Can't hear you too well. I'm so sorry. Do you want to come closer to the...
Yeah, can you hear me now? Sorry about that. I joined late, but I think this is a really amazing conversation. Obviously, creating a positive environment around us will feed into so many good things. I mean, from changing conversations to more understanding conversations, achieving things a lot easier with people. And obviously, as everybody said, it might affect the children to grow up so they realize and understand not to fall for these organizations that take advantage of them. And
Yes.
they are in company growing up, and they are aware of where to go instead of not realizing how they are getting into some not so good things. So it's very important to
Okay,
have
thank you. So just, I heard most of that, which is to help children develop this positive mindset so they find their right way in life and don't fall prey to organizations that can exploit them. I think the only things I'd add is that if we had a positive mindset, our relationships would be richer. We'd have fewer expectations. We'd believe the best in people rather than the worst in people. Give people the benefit of the doubt, or as Kate said, walk in their shoes and see what are they feeling? Why are they thinking and feeling that way? Rather than just thinking they're wrong. And of course, it would overall help us be more kind. So thank you very much. Jo, any closing comments on that before we wind up?
Well, just picking up on Kate's comment in the chat about a board game, I've got a gratitude challenge game here, and I'm thinking that we should perhaps have a human wisdom challenge game that can be, used at dinner parties, around the dinner table with families or whatever, and we could really create some great human wisdom questions in there to get people thinking.
So, sounds like, yeah, right.
That could be a good idea. But yeah, my closing thoughts is just, what I've already said, really. It's just lovely to hear so many different insights and hear the enthusiasm for a shift in the way that we think as humans, really, and what we can do to help that shift happen. And starting with the Human Wisdom Project seems a great place to start for me.
And for me, this collective learning embodies what the Human Wisdom Project's all about. That we all have in us this innate understanding and wisdom, which we can draw on and learn from each other and share. So thank you, everyone. And I will share the recording of that with everybody. And thank you all for your contributions. And Alan, I look forward to a conversation with you fairly soon. All right. Thank you.
Very much. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
Jo, for all your time today.